Several of Putin's arsenals have been attacked, and enemy manpower has been destroyed by our special services. President Zelenskyy gives an interview to Fox News, sending important messages to the incoming U.S. administration and sending the Russian dictator far away. Oleksandr Musienko, head of the Center for Military Legal Studies. Alexander, hello, I'm glad to see you. In the city of Gubkin in Russia, the city of command post of the Axis North Group. This is reported by the main intelligence Directorate. Residents of Gubkin not only observed black, thick smoke, smelled it, and heard loud explosions. Metaphorically, our special services are accountable for every action they take. Crime against Ukraine will be justly retaliated against. What do we need to know about the town of Gubkin and the destruction of the command post? And why is Russian air defense not protecting either military targets or the subjects of the criminal army? They need to, let's just say, they need to concentrate and focus. There are a lot of targets, they are covered, but they cannot always shoot down targets. There are a lot of air defense systems, but they are being hit and destroyed by the Ukrainian defense forces. This figure is constantly growing, as are the missiles used by the enemy for air defense. As for this case, it is one of the command posts that provides one of the links of the Sever troop grouping. It was identified and it was struck. Of course, this is important because any command post that exists, and there are simply different command posts, they are of different levels of direct, let's say purpose, starting from battalion, ending with brigade, groups of troops, and so on, ending with the army group itself. And the disruption of the coordination of any of these groups, any control point, leads to problems with the transmission of orders, coordination of actions, giving orders, confirmation of orders, because you need to understand that the group of troops performing the task sometimes needs to verify, confirm certain commands in order to execute them. When one of the links falls out, difficulties arise. That is why it is important to hit command posts. This is the work that the Ukrainian Defense Forces are doing and will continue to do, because disruption of coordination and control of units creates chaos and leads to problems. And so we work to disrupt communications, strike at command posts, and the third point is the sources of military logistics, warehouses, ammunition, shells, and their timely delivery. And accordingly, if these links fall out and if they are subjected to effective strikes, the grouping of troops begins to demonstrate its ineffectiveness. Depending on the level of the command post, starting from the link. But in any case, whatever link it is, if it falls out of this mechanism, the entire mechanism is suspended and needs to be repaired. And this takes time. So, when we talk about time, this opportunity, this certain time that arises, can be used by our units to perform the tasks that we need. Yes, of course, these links, not even if, but when these links fall out, and they are already falling out. Because on the night of Wednesday, November 20th, which is the day on our calendar today, drones attacked the 13th Grau arsenal in the Novgorod region near Kotovo, as reported by Russian telegram channels.
А так, звісно, ці навіть не якщо, а коли ці ланки випадають, і вони вже випадають, тому що в ніч на середу 20 листопада, саме такий день у нас сьогодні на календарі, безпілотники атакували 13-й арсенал.
Andriy Kovalenko, head of the NSDC's Center for Countering Disinformation, confirmed the attack on the 13th Grau arsenal, located about 680 kilometers from the Ukraine border. What was stored at this arsenal, and what do we know about the consequences of the damage? Kovalenko wrote there, in principle, everything that could be stored, except for shells and ammunition, mines, missiles for S-300 systems and rocket artillery, that is, Grad, Smerch, as well as ballistic missiles, the most important ones. Iskander and KN-23 North Korean. Now we are waiting for verification, confirmation of this event. So far as I understand, as of this moment, the General Staff has not reported any damage, but they are looking forward to this event in order to verify and clearly see what consequences have been caused. Now, in principle, the Ukrainian Defense Forces are doing everything possible to clearly verify each such strike, to establish the circumstances, and this is the task of the main intelligence directorate, to conduct appropriate intelligence and work and then inform about the consequences. Information is being gathered about a possible detonation at the arsenal where the missiles were located. This is a powerful blow, and it's the second day in a row that Ukraine has attacked the arsenal, which is a very good pace. We hope it will continue. Of course, I'm not talking about the fact that the media may be less interested in the fact that we have daily strikes on warehouses, small, insignificant ones. But in the occupied territory, there are constantly strikes, drones, and other means that constantly operate in depth as far as possible in order to stop enemy attacks of various levels, of course, actions, attacks, and consequences. But I can say that we hope to get more information soon because, well, this is very seriously weakening. Therefore, such strikes, of course, if they continue with such intensity, will, of course, reduce the enemy's ability to conduct their usual combat operations. And if they are not conducting their usual combat operations, they are forced to make, let's say, adjustments. Adjustments are necessary when using the maximum amount of artillery, in particular to destroy ballistic missiles, such as Iskander, which Russia uses both for terror and to strike military targets. It is important to find these missiles and strike them, including their analogs, such as the North Korean KN-23. This is exactly what happened in the Novgorod region. Belgorod, there's an operation there, as you joke in your morning bulletin. Oleksandr, friends, by the way, I would like to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel Oleksandr Musienko. Just in the description below this video, as you aptly joke, the drone operation took place again in the Belgorod region. We have already made a short teaser about it, and now we will talk about it in more detail. The EFKO plant, which produces food products and drones for the Russian army, was attacked. This was reported by Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council. The attack in the Belgorod region was also confirmed by Gladko, who noted that only parts of the drones were shot down. However, many food production facilities are actually working for the war. Our intelligence knows for sure that the factories are not making bread, but military products. The issue of cargo drones is also important. This information is from open sources, and the intelligence uses publications and posts on websites about this company in Russia. They are working on a rather promising project, working on unmanned helicopters. That is, unmanned helicopters, other types of models, and in the future, machine guns, rocket launchers, and so on will be used on them. This is one of the goals. In addition, these drones can also move cargo, military cargo, when needed. These are also projects that they work on at the request of the Ministry of Defense. And as for the cover, they hide behind the fact that they are developing civilian taxis for Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other megacities. That is a helicopter taxi, a drone that can land somewhere, take you somewhere, move you somewhere, and so on. This is their cover, if we're talking about civilian needs. But it is clear that such technologies are dual-use technologies. They are not called that for nothing, because they have a dual purpose, one military, as I have described, and the other civilian. And accordingly, they are covered, and the cover is that they produce margarine and so on. So in fact, they came up with this story and thought that it would not be detected, that it would be impossible. Plus, of course, intelligence works, there's relevant information, it is reported, and then strikes are carried out. Because here we also need to understand that, by the way, Gladkov wrote that the production line was damaged. One of the premises was damaged, then the production line and the power line. And when we talk about the production line, this is very important because this is in fact what produces, what works to make these drones appear. So the strike is also important. Well, I can say that there are many facilities on the territory of Russia. Our forces will continue to work as we increase the production of our drones, missiles, and what our partners give us to strike as many times as possible to weaken the enemy, the military-industrial complex. In this sense, the enemy continues to produce weapons, to use these weapons against us. So strikes on such factories and enterprises, especially within reach, we can say, not only on drones, but also missiles. This is, of course, the work that needs to be done. Alexander, last night during my English class, I was surprised by the information from the Russian Ministry of Defense, which reported that from 21 to 23:55, they had stopped the attempt of Kyiv terrorists. Although I was definitely not there because I had a lesson. Usually it's us, the Kyiv terrorist regime, but 42 Ukrainian drones attack Bryansk, Smolensk, Moscow, Kursk, Orel, and Rostov regions. The geography and the number are impressive. On the night of November 20th, 44 Ukrainian airplane-type drones were attacked, allegedly shot down, but it could have been me, because I didn't sleep well. And what do we know about the fact that drones were flying to the Moscow region in the evening? This is a question that should not be understood by the general public, as it concerns technical aspects, timing, opportunities, and the moment for action. So these are purely technical details that are directly related to certain points that, let's say, do not relate to what the general public needs to understand or know. We understand. Okay, but it's flying. And thank God, what can you do about it? Not only drones will fly, they will fly at Russia, they will fly ATKMS, which yesterday flew to the Russians on the 1,000th day of the war, just like this, on the 1,000th day of a full-scale war, which they have been waging against us for 11 years. Ukraine's armed forces may now have up to 50 long-range HIMARS missiles to strike Russian territory, the Times reports. Ukraine has enough launchers to launch missiles, but with limited supplies, the Ukrainian command will have to carefully select targets on Russian territory to strike. U-50 is not bad, if we consider that yesterday in the Bryansk region, it was not 6 missiles, but 2 to 3. That's enough for 16-17 attacks. It's hard to say. I can say that, again, excessive publicity in this matter makes it easier for the enemy to do anything, because the enemy is always ready. Because, unfortunately, this trend cannot be broken. The Western media will report everything. They don't really care. Let's just say it's important for them to have information. And how it affects is the 10th question. And it's unfortunate that we keep getting reports about how many missiles we have or might have, but I don't know how many there are. In fact, maybe the Times has some sources who are leaking them the relevant information, but I can tell you that they will definitely work. And from what I know, our defense forces are working very carefully to select the appropriate targets and calculations. Perhaps these targets were agreed with our American partners who are helping us. I hope that the exact coordinates of the strikes will not appear in the media, and that will be good. We will not reveal secrets, because we are not Le Figaro. The Washington Post reports, and I don't see anything wrong with disclosing this, that Biden has approved the transfer of anti-personnel mines to Ukraine. Previously, he prohibited their transmission, but they may have a greater impact. On the battlefield than ATACMS strikes on Russia. What kind of threat could they pose? We went through the whole evolution, yes, and even Jake Sullivan, President Biden's national security advisor, was asked about the delay in arms deliveries to Ukraine. He did not answer specifically, but noted that we are now getting what we need. And this is very important, although some decisions were late.
І для нас це дуже важливо, безумовно, і буде все використано за призначенням, але
The Washington Post says that the Biden administration is concerned about the events on the battlefield, but they were very different before. I mean, it was different before. We were not Ukraine. We have not been conducting offensive actions for the whole of 2024, even earlier since the end of 23. Yes, it was clear that the trend was toward defense. So we need to mine. They did not hand over these mines because, well, there is a position, let's say, of some human rights activists, and there's a relevant convention banning anti-personnel mines. And accordingly, there are fears that many of these mines remain in the ground and are not detonated. And it will take many years, decades, perhaps even to clear them.
У яких обмежена там дія акумулятора, плюс вони самоліквідовуються. Є й такі фактично.
Now these are mines that have a limited battery life, plus they are self-destructive. There are actually some that are less harmful if they lie for a long time. And there are various technical issues related to them, but now, of course, we need them because we can mine those strips where Russia attacks with infantry groups. And of course, when we talk about the style of offensive actions of the enemy, these are infantry groups, including assaults by active infantry, and including, of course, that this is perhaps one of the main areas where we need to strike, that is, the infantry. How to destroy drones on the one hand and artillery strikes on places of concentration, on the other hand, mines. So mines are very important. We really need them now. It's true. I absolutely agree with the Washington Post. It's great. It's good that it's better late than never. Yes, everything probably works here. The United States warns of a massive air attack on Ukraine, citing its intelligence. For security reasons, the embassy closes its doors and recommends its staff stay in shelters. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, comments on the U.S. Embassy's warning, noting that Russians were stockpiling missiles, including X-101, Caliber, and ballistic types, to fire on Ukraine. Aviation is ready for shelling in Russia. Oleksandr, we talked about what was really going on before Trump's inauguration. The Russians may launch up to 4 more attacks to show their willingness to continue the genocide. Why is the U.S. Embassy only warning about this massive attack? A year and a half ago, they also warned of the possibility of such attacks. But now the question is whether the attack that took place 3 days ago, on November 17th, will be repeated. As for the missile attacks, we did talk about the enemy's accumulation of forces and means, and they have prepared them for a certain number of attacks, up to 5 such massive attacks, probably not more. And they will certainly try to put pressure before Trump's inauguration in order to, let's just say, well, we understand why, because they need to put pressure in order, as Putin thinks, to have a stronger position in the negotiations. That's why they will try to carry out this missile. Plus, of course, because they are all talking about decisive measures, because they say Ukraine has received ATACMS and so on. Well, what kind of decisive measures? Well, besides terror, Russia does nothing against civilians and energy infrastructure. They have done it before. And this is an element in their arsenal, well, forever actually, a way in which they can act. If we assume that Russia, for example, is planning to conduct consecutive attacks, then 3 to 4 days is enough time to reload the aircraft and prepare for new strikes. It was the same during the attacks of December 29, 2023, and January 2, 2024, when the enemy launched massive strikes and used a pause of 3 days. There were also some precedents for this. That is, if the task is to strike in a row, then in principle, they have enough time to recharge and prepare. The other question is that, of course, they can't stretch it out so quickly. So if they decide to launch this strike today, but at the same time, if there is such a plan, and if the U.S. has the relevant intelligence information, then I think the risks, at least they are today, in the coming days, may increase. Here, too, it is not always possible. Well, perhaps the usual American intelligence, having information, has the exact date and time, perhaps the planned date and time, and they have this data, but at the same time, well, there is an error of a day or two, even a week. I mean, because plans can change, anything can change. Russia can cancel, can postpone, and so on. But that... The risk of missile attacks on Ukraine continues in the coming weeks, including from strategic aviation. Our efforts to strengthen air defense are focused on this, hoping to improve protection of energy facilities and other critical infrastructure. Oleksandr, but I know that you also commented on this topic in your summary, and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, spoke to Fox News. And where does Donald Trump even get the staff for his future team from? And say that, yes, Putin is weaker than Donald Trump, but we can't do it without America's help. If they cut down on how important it is for Fox News, and these are the messages coming from the Ukrainian guarantor. It's very important, and I can say that in general the messages were correct, because the first message is Putin, and a lot depends on Putin, but even more depends on the United States. The first message is that more depends on the United States, and Trump is stronger. Trump and his entourage will see this. He will definitely like it. The next point, and the message is that America and Ukraine are ready to complete the diplomatic process, are interested in peace, the issue is fair, and the United States can help to bring this about. And the next message, of course, it sounds unpleasant, threatening, let's say about a possible loss in the war, if the United States stops being with Ukraine and supporting us. This is also frank. And the next one is that at the same time, Ukraine does not forget to develop its own defense industry, works on it, invests in it, and calls on our partners, in particular from the United States, to stand by us and produce together in the same way. And there is an interesting point where the president says that if the United States makes other decisions, Ukraine will be ready to act differently, in a different way. We have a plan. I'm very curious about what kind of plan it might be. Actually, I'm really curious. But the messages are all correct, all to the point, just for the Fox News audience. We still have so many plans about plans, but this is the topic. The main thing is to implement them and get closer to them, to encourage others to want to fulfill them. This is important, as always, like any plan, adjustments are possible along the way. It is important that the basic principles do not disappear. Indeed, a base is essential, especially for strikes on Russian territory. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the coming days. Take care, look after yourself, goodbye, and all the best. Oleksandr Musienko, head of the Military Research Project Center, Iryna Uzlova here. Friends, thank you for joining us. Subscribe to Oleksandr's YouTube, Zahidnet's YouTube, and the 24th channel. Take care, believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. See you, and we will win.